Welcome to the LSU Sports Insider, brought to you by the journalists at The Advocate, NOLA.com, and the Times-Picayune. Perryn Keys here in the box to your upper left, joined today by Reed Darcey, who is just on his way back from Knoxville, Tennessee, having watched the LSU women defeat the Lady Vols and putting on a defensive show and getting quite an effort from Hailey Van Lith, of course, and plenty more drama to maybe dive into as well. And on the bottom of your screen is Koki Riley, who's about to pack up and head for Texas as the LSU baseball team prepares for a single game, midweek game against Rice over at Reckling Park, and then off to Minute Maid Park, where they will play Texas to start off on Friday night, followed by a blockbuster weekend. Again, I'm here, so we're all checking in from different spots. I'm in an undisclosed location in Florida. On assignment, and I will try to dodge anybody who's going to be running around the freeway with bath salts and assorted other Florida man type things. So we will, without further ado, we will get underway. Gentlemen, how you guys doing?
Doing great. Hello from Metairie, Louisiana. I flew into New Orleans because I'm still in Metairie. So yeah, I'm doing great. How are y'all?
Doing pretty well. Getting ready for the first road trip of the year, and it's 4 games in Houston, Texas, and then they play a 5th game in Hammond, actually. So it's actually a 5-game road trip.
That's right.
So yeah, it's interesting.
You get to go to the 4th largest city in America, followed by maybe the 4th largest city in Southeast Louisiana, in Hammond, America. You could do a whole lot worse. They got plenty of good food options in Hammond, as they do in Houston. A little bit of business as we always get into here to start off. If you're reading and consuming all our fine work, you know that the Advocate's always been the number one destination for LSU sports. This podcast is just another way for us to bring some of that coverage to you. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever other finer podcasts are found. And of course, perhaps more importantly, and it's a little bit more fun, you can get video to go with your audio on our YouTube channel. You go to the YouTube channel, specifically LSU Tigers on NOLA.com. Search for LSU Tigers on NOLA.com on YouTube. You can catch us there live every Monday and Thursday. If you don't catch us live, you can always catch us on that same YouTube channel after the fact. And of course, we are brought to you by Champion Wealth Strategies. And we certainly appreciate them, Champion Wealth Strategies. To learn more about them, you go to championwealthstrategies.com and plan like a champion today. 2 things, since we've got almost every sport underneath the sun going on. Spring football practice is going to start up here in a little less than 2 weeks. And so in addition to women's basketball, men's basketball, gymnastics, softball, all of it going on all at once. Please stay up to date with our LSU newsletter. To do that, to get the LSU newsletter delivered straight to your inbox, you sign up at the theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter. And of course, if you haven't already subscribed to the Advocate, please do so, whether that's print or digital. You can sign up at theadvocate.com/subscribe. So gentlemen, here we are. We will start with a little bit of baseball talk first. LSU obviously out of the gate pretty strong. Tigers win 3 of 4 games in a sort of a wraparound weekend against Northern Illinois and Stony Brook. Of course, everybody remembers Stony Brook. A lot to get into, obviously, now that the Tigers are a couple of weeks into their season. But Koki, just sort of your general takeaway, your 2 cents from a 3-1 weekend at Alex Box.
Yeah, it was a little uneven for LSU this weekend. Maybe a little bit more so than the first weekend of the season. The bookend games on Thursday and Sunday, I thought they played pretty darn well. 10-2 win, and then an 18-10 win on Sunday, 10-2 on Thursday. Again, just trying to make sure I get the days right.
Right.
So yeah, like you have those 2 wins, but in the middle 2 games, they had a lot of trouble offensively, hitting the ball, and they scored 2 runs in their first loss of the season on Friday to Stony Brook, and then against Northern Illinois the next day, they scored 5 runs, but they only had 3 hits, and against Northern Illinois in a game they won 5-2. So it just wasn't the sort of performances you want to see from the offense, and kind of was a reflection of what we saw a little bit of last week as well, and that just this inconsistency that they've had offensively. One day they scored 27 runs, the next day they only scored 2, for example, right? And he's just trying to find, but like we sort of talked about this before the season started, that they have a lot of younger guys in this lineup. They lost 6 starters from last year's team in the order. All those are veteran guys who could get on base, and and they were very good at pitch selection and waiting for their pitch. Dylan Cruz is obviously the epitome of that, but trying to replicate that again this season, is there's been some kinks in the armor when it comes to that sort of stuff.
An interesting nugget I thought that was very sort of telling, pursuant to your point about the 5-2 victory. Okay, good for them. They won. They did what they were supposed to do. Ultimately, a win's a win. But 11, you're talking about being selective at the plate and being smart at the plate with a wise, very meticulous approach, as you would expect from a Jay Johnson team. Well, on that day, 11 of the 27 outs were either with or 2 or fewer pitches in the at bat. So that's that's not a sign that they're being selective at the plate. Did Jay Johnson discuss that any more in depth?
Yeah, it was basically, at least from my impression of talking to Coach Johnson, talking to some of the players after a few of these games, is that they were just being way too aggressive early in counts, and I kind of use that statistic to sort of round up that general idea of swinging on the first pitch, swinging on the second pitch when you just don't need to. When you're not facing a pitcher who necessarily lights up the strike zone, has wipeout 2-strike count sort of stuff, and there are few. I'm just saying that because there are very few instances where you want to be doing that as an offense, swinging early in counts. And they weren't facing the sort of pitching that necessarily fits that sort of description, I guess. And when you're overly aggressive in counts and you're not sticking to a plan, then mediocre pitching can take advantage of you. That's more or less what Jay Johnson said after Saturday's game, even though they won that game. But again, they only had 3 hits in that game. They still had 9 walks, so they were. So you they
were selective at times.
Yeah, so they were selective at times, but there was no consistency there because of the other stat that you just mentioned earlier. So, I mean, some of this again is to be expected at least a little bit because of all the younger guys they have in this order. When you're relying on guys who were just freshmen last season and they're sort of hoisted into these much bigger roles, the Brady Neals and the Jared Joneses of the world. Right. But at the same time, I guess what I'm just saying is that moving forward, don't be surprised if this issue pops up at least a few more times throughout the rest of the season when they start facing better and higher quality pitching, just because, again, they just don't have, I guess, the experience and the horses that they necessarily had last season.
And in much the same way that you would expect a team to maybe come out of spring training as not a finished product, I think maybe that's certainly can be the case with the LSU baseball team, having only played we're talking about 8 games now. They're 8 games into the season. Am I right?
Yes. Yes. Okay. 7-1
so,
8 games.
8 games when you've got 56 more to go in the regular season, plus a handful at the SEC tournament, plus a handful in the regionals, and Lord only knows how many past that. We'll see, but we're talking about close to a 70-game run, and you're 8 games in. So not surprising altogether that you're not a finished product, and that could also maybe go for the rotation too. We all know that the opening day lineup, as we said before, is almost never the same. It isn't ever the same as the lineup on the final day of the season, wherever that winds up being. So before we get to the pitching rotation, I do want to that you did mention one of your stories up at theadvocate.com here on Monday morning, or the posted Monday morning as we're coming to you Monday afternoon. The LSU baseball team does have a couple of good signs. One of those signs being, I personally I appreciate little guys who make their mark. And LSU obviously thought they had something in Steven Milam, but it looks like they may have more than what they maybe even anticipated coming out of the gate.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty sure Steven Milam, the freshman middle infielder, started 3 of the 4 games this weekend as well, if I'm remembering correctly. But he also started a game at shortstop, which is something we hadn't seen in the first weekend. And Jay Johnson wanted to give Michael Braswell a day off. He gets the day off, and Milam cleanly fields 6 ground balls at shortstop. None of them were particularly difficult, but he made the easy plays, which is what you want to see from a guy who's filling in at that spot. But I think the next day at second base on Sunday, he made 2 fantastic plays. One play ranging to his right where he had to make a throw off his knees, pretty much off balance, and made it look fairly easy. And Jared Jones made a really good scoop to finish out the play. And then he also made a leaping catch on a line drive in the 7th inning when Cam Johnson was in the game. And despite his size, he still got up there and got it. So it kind of tells you how twitchy of an athlete he is and how quick he is and how his range is maybe even better than Braswell's, just from pure like athleticism and speed standpoint. But I think just the one question that we have, not just with Milam, but also with Braswell, is their arm strength at that position. They don't have a Jordan Thompson, which is someone that they've been relying on the last few years at that position, who can make all the throws, can field all the balls, thanks to the fact that he had just fantastic range at shortstop. They don't have that this season, but I am interested to see if they play Milam more at short moving forward, which I think is a possibility depending on what happens with Braswell at the plate, or God forbid he gets hurt, unfortunately. If anything happens to him, that's basically what I'm saying. They have options with Milam as a potential option at short. And then Ryan Kucherak, who is another freshman who may not be quite there offensively yet, but they definitely like him and they want to play him more. At least that's what Jay keeps on saying. So they have some options at shortstop, which is something that they didn't really have the last few seasons, even if they had the guy. So it's kind of like the opposite situation of what they've had the last 2 years, where they had the guy, but not a lot of depth, but they have the depth, but maybe not the guy, at least defensively. Maybe they do have it offensively with Braswell, and he played very well on Sunday, which was a very good sign for them.
Just to make sure that I'm sort of reading you right, Koki, you feel as though these 2 youngsters, Braswell and Milam, have similar range or the same range as Jordan Thompson. The question is, can they turn around and make a throw from deep in the hole, going away from first base if there's something they got to chase closer toward the third base line?
I think Milam has similar range. I think Braswell's range is, I think, clearly not at the level of Thompson and probably not quite at the level of Milam either. But Braswell makes the easy plays. He makes the routine plays. There's a consistency there that we didn't quite see with Jordan Thompson during his time with LSU. Even though Thompson was a lot more consistent making the easy plays last year than he was the year before, where it was a major issue for them.
Right.
That's not necessarily the case with Braswell. He makes the easy plays, but some of the tougher plays deeper into the hole where he has to make further throws or where he has to really extend his range, he's not quite as quick and twitchy as Milam is, or especially what Thompson was. So I think that's something to sort of keep an eye out for moving forward. And with Milam, I think he can make all the plays when it comes to his range. He's so quick and so fast, and it's just a matter of, can he make the deep throws in the hole, especially off to his right side, especially if he has to make off balance throws. We didn't really have to see that when he was playing shortstop, and we've seen maybe 1 or 2 throws he had to make at second base, but again, those throws are just a lot easier. And there's a reason why your best your infielder with the best arm usually is your shortstop, because they're making the deepest throws, because on third base, yeah, you have to make some deep throws, but the angles
not nearly as much. Right, not nearly as much when you're going to get away from the plate, away from first base, and now you're deep in the hole. Yep.
Yeah, and you're covering more range at shortstop and all that sort of stuff. So the responsibilities of shortstop and just the physical toll that takes on you, I'm kind of curious to see if Milam can do that in more than just game here or game there. It's something to keep an eye out for.
Another thing that everybody obviously will be keeping an eye on as we go down the road here is the bullpen. Again, before we get to the starting rotation, the bullpen certainly what we discussed several times before the season started. This is a lot of left-handed pitching. Maybe the most. It's the most I can recall from an LSU baseball roster. But it looks like they stumbled into some pretty good options from the right side, including Christian Little, of course. Kind of fell out of favor last year. Gavin Guidry, who certainly did not, who came on last year, but then also a newcomer in Fidel Ulloa. I probably butchered that name. Ulloa. I could not get that out of my head.
Yeah,
right.
He has
just
fantastic mustache.
Yes.
Best mustache.
Best in the nation, probably.
Absolutely.
No, 2 thumbs up. But no, if you would just run that down a little bit for us. Looked like it was a pretty good weekend for the bullpen in general.
By the way, Reed, we asked a couple of players who had the better mustache, Hayden Travinski or Fidel, and Fidel I think won at least twice.
That's a walkover. That's a walkover.
That's not a slight to Travinski, but I think I'm going Fidel there.
Travinski's is very full, but it doesn't have like the Raleigh fingers touch to it.
No.
Like,
it's the handlebar. It's the handlebar that really makes it. So high marks.
Exactly. And apparently this is the first time he's ever grown a mustache too. That's what he told us this past week, that's impressive. First time ever. First time out of the gate. Pulling off Raleigh fingers. Anyway, but I mean, not only is he pulling off mustaches, he's also pulling off scoreless innings because he's thrown 4 scoreless innings so far in 2 weekends with LSU. Right-handed reliever. If you never heard of Fidel's name before, don't beat up on yourself. He was not necessarily the most. He wasn't necessarily the biggest name that they got this past offseason, but he's ended up becoming one of their most valuable offseason acquisitions. He was a junior college pitcher at San Joaquin Delta Community College. Hopefully I got that right. Apparently it's only 15 minutes away from his house, so it was just a local commute for him. He's from Northern California. He has fastball around the mid 90s and has a really, really good slider, and he just pounds the strike zone, consistently throws strikes, and he's going to be a very valuable reliever in short spurts for them. He doesn't really have a third pitch at the moment, so I don't really think you're going to see him necessarily as an option to be a starter. But at the same time, they need valuable right-handed relievers, and I think he stepped up, and him and Guidry pretty much as kind of the top 2 guys from the right-handed side. And Guidry has pretty much been as advertised so far. Not a whole lot to sort of add with him. His slider's incredible. He's been working on his fastball and trying to throw it more often. And then for the other right-handed options, I mean, there's just a lot of solid performances on the right-handed side. I guess with the exception of Sunday's game where Micah Bucknam couldn't get an out, and it kind of led to a 6-run inning. And Christian Little came in for him, and after pitching well, the first weekend, and then on pitching well also on Saturday, struggled a little bit on Sunday, but I think some of that was just kind of bad luck. There was a fly ball to right field that Ethan Fry should have seen and lost in the sun. That turned into a double. That turned into an extra 2 earned runs against Christian's name. I think there was like a fluky single in there, like a poorly hit single in there too. So I think with Little, it's just been a matter of finding that consistency and finding the strike zone consistently, because he has the stuff to be a starter and to be a good one. I mean, this is a kid who started as a 17, 18-year-old with Vanderbilt as a freshman, moved to the bullpen the next year, kind of had a lost season, and then struggled last year. And even though he had some flashes of good performances, he's still really young. He's still very talented. Just a matter of just trying to find that consistency with him. And I think Jay Johnson wants to believe in him as a real piece for them moving forward from the right-handed side of the bullpen at the very least. And then Sam Dutton as a guy who was kind of lost in the shuffle by the end of last season, but is someone that Jay Johnson has relied on in some of these closer games early on in the season, which I think is pretty interesting, given that it seemed like he was a guy who wasn't going to be a huge factor for this team this season, but he's throwing the ball pretty well. So those are just a few names from the right side that to just, I guess, sort of keep an eye out for moving forward. And They need those right-handed options because they already have a ton of lefties. Nate
Yes, they
Ackenhouse,
do.
Urban Herring, Justin Lohr didn't have a very good weekend, but I think you can tell that anyone who's watched these games, you can tell he at least has ability. So, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how this bullpen shakes out moving forward.
So looking ahead, the Tigers, and the reason we look ahead is because it's the perfect time to then look at the starting rotation. Obviously, Luke Holman to this point has had the best stuff, had the best performances in his 2 starts compared to Thatcher Hurd, who has been the Friday night starter. LSU is going to go play Rice at 7:00 Wednesday at Reckling Park over in Rice. Reckling Park is very much a pitcher's park. It faces south, which is to say that when you're hitting south, and typically in Houston, the wind is blowing up from the Gulf of Mexico, blowing south to north, so that knocks a lot of fly balls down. I actually just looked at the weather forecast for Houston on Wednesday, and it's got wind blowing in from the north at 21 miles an hour. So that actually suggests that maybe it might be a great night for hitters, one way or the other. LSU's got some decisions to make, and again, these are not going to be final decisions, as we all know, for the rest of the season from now until the end of time. But I think everybody would sort of be curious now at this point whether there's going to be a move for Holman to go into the Friday night spot, or whom would you expect to be pitching Wednesday night on what may be a very good night for fly ball hitters in Reckling Park over in Houston.
Yeah, I think for Wednesday, you're probably going to see Cade Anderson, the freshman. He didn't pitch this past weekend. He looked very good in his start. The last week in the first series of the year when he pitched the 4th game of that 4-game series. And I think there was a reason he didn't pitch this weekend. It was so he could pitch on Wednesday. And maybe they would have used him if, some guys had to get pushed up if one of the starters didn't throw well, but Gage Jump was solid, and Nate Ackenhausen threw 3 2/3 on Thursday, and then Thatcher Hurd went deeper into his game on Friday, and on Saturday Luke Holman was lights out good, and lights out good to the point where he has pretty clearly been their best pitcher so far. 12 1/3 innings, 18 strikeouts, no runs allowed. He's just been absolutely dominant from the right-handed side, really solid. His breaking stuff's been excellent. He's done a good job of mixing pitches, locating his spots. Doesn't have the best quote unquote stuff on the team. Let alone he might have the 3rd best stuff among their top 3 starters, but
he has gotten a lot out of what that's right. He's gotten a lot out of what he's got, and certainly was used to incidentally being a Friday night starter when he was at Alabama before he transferred over to LSU. So
exactly.
Well, so let's talk about this a little bit. This is obviously one of the highlights of the LSU baseball season every year. Almost every year they head over to Houston or Round Rock or some such place and do a little merry-go-round. They're going to play the Longhorns, of course, at 7:00 Friday night in Minute Maid Park, Astros Foundation Classic, followed by the Ragin' Cajuns the following night, 7:00, and then followed by Texas State out of the Sun Belt at 2:00 on Sunday. Clearly the 2 biggest draws are Texas, number 14 in the nation, ULF yet unranked, but of course that's always going to be one that's going to be watched closely by LSU baseball fans and by Cajuns baseball fans. So just walk us through what do you expect and what if you're an LSU baseball fan, what would you hope to see on not only on Wednesday but obviously through the weekend as well?
Yeah, the Rice game's kind of interesting because they actually just played UL and they won 2 out of 3 games in that series this past weekend. So there is kind of a comparison point between playing Rice on Wednesday and then playing UL on Saturday in Houston. And then I think the Texas game is that's the first big test of the year and the first real test of the year. The competition really in this upcoming week in general is a step up. Is a step up. I thought Stony Brook's probably been the best team they've played so far this year. Stony Brook had some solid hitters. They threw their best pitcher on it was on Friday. The loss LSU had. Jay Johnson was by far the best pitcher they've seen this year, and just seeing who Northern Illinois and Stony Brook threw on Saturday and Sunday, that's probably true. So I'm really curious to see how they sort of react to the Texas matchup. Can they get the offense going at all? Can they score 5, 6, 7 runs in this game? We'll see. And can they sort of like reach? Can they stick to their plan that they clearly did a good job of doing on Sunday when they scored 18 runs? Can they do that again on Friday against much better pitching? That's the sort of like test we want to see. Like if they don't play well and they lose 10-2, then I don't think it's the end of the world either. But at the same time, I think it's a good sort of like litmus test as to where this team is at the moment, this Texas game. And really, the Rice game and the UL game, the Texas State game, I'd say something similar, right? So
Sure.
if they go undefeated, that would be a heck of an accomplishment. I don't know if I would totally expect that. Just, again, baseball's a grind. You're going to lose some of these games that you should win, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This team's still a work in progress, especially in offense. But I'd like to see at least, I guess, spurts of the talent, the top-tier talent that this team quite clearly has.
This is the LSU Sports Insider, brought to you by the journalists at The Advocate, NOLA.com, The Times-Picayune. Again, you know where to find all the writers' great work. That's at theadvocate.com and NOLA.com. Please subscribe if you haven't already. You can do that by getting a subscription at theadvocate.com/subscribe. Please, as we say, please stay up to date with everything. There's plenty going on underneath the sun. Everything going on underneath the sun at LSU right now. It's spring, which means it's fun time. And a dull moment. There's almost something going on every single night over there on campus. And so to stay up to date with softball, baseball, men's basketball, women's basketball, spring football, and gymnastics, and for that matter, track and field, there's one place where you can get it all sent straight to your phone, to your desktop, to your inbox. That's the LSU newsletter. You can sign up for that and get it sent straight to your inbox every single day. It's a daily newsletter. And our friend Scott Rabelais actually handles that personally 3 times per week. So support your local journalists. Sign up for the LSU newsletter. Please go to theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter. We are here on the LSU Sports Insider every Monday and Thursday. You can catch us live on all our social channels, specifically the YouTube channel, LSU Tigers on NOLA.com. You can go to YouTube and search LSU Tigers on NOLA.com. You should be able to pull up the channel. You can subscribe to that. You can catch us there live every Monday and Thursday on that YouTube channel. If you don't catch us there live, you can catch us after the fact. And you can catch us also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever the finer podcasts are found. So please do that some kind of way, somehow. And while you're at it, please drop a line to or check in on Champion Wealth Strategies, our fine sponsor. They've been with us aboard. They've been aboard with us the entire year, and they've certainly been great to us. So please go to championwealthstrategies.com and plan like a champion today. We appreciate them being aboard. So Reed Darcey, you have just gotten out. I promise we'll wrap this up quickly so you can go ahead and take a nap. You've just gotten back from Knoxville, Tennessee on Sunday. First things first, of course, LSU takes care of business, and we'll get deep into that here in just a moment. But first things first, Reed, if I'm not mistaken, this was your first trip to Knoxville and your first trip to Thompson Bowling Arena, where the Lady Vols were so good for so long, and still certainly a formidable program, but a lot of history there and a lot of great atmosphere, and certainly one of the destination spots for women's basketball in this country. So I just wanted to ask, sort of what your 2 cents on the whole atmosphere.
Yeah, Knoxville was awesome. I really enjoyed the city. Like I really enjoy mountains. I like the mountains and the scenery.
You're living in the wrong place, buddy. I don't think there's any mountains in Metairie. Last I heard. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I like going on vacation in the mountains.
Yeah.
So I like seeing the scenery and the rivers right there on campus. They're really cool, and I was super grateful that I had a lot of free time this weekend to sort of do some exploring. I went and saw the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame, which was pretty cool. I went downtown a little bit, checked out some of the restaurants there, and they got a nice little square area downtown. It was cool, and the arena was really nice. Arena was probably my favorite one I've been to so far.
Well, tell us, if you would, Reed, tell us about the atmosphere. We were talking about this before the podcast went hot, so to speak, but speaking of which, I mean, that's how, Tennessee, the Lady Vols, Pat Summitt, no other explanation needed. It's one of the traditional powerhouse programs in women's basketball. It has been. I'm curious to know just sort of what the feeling is over there. They're having a fine season. They'll make the tournament. They're doing all right. but certainly not what they were used to for all those years competing for championships and winning championships under the great Pat Summitt. Just curious to know what it felt like, what the sort of what the local gestalt was like over there at the moment with a Tennessee team that's doing okay, but not great.
Yeah. You kind of feel for Kelly Harper because there's really an impossible standard set there. Pat Summitt, is Pat Summitt. Like there's no way any coach can live up to what Pat Summitt was and what she accomplished. So, Tennessee's a fine team. They're a real solid team. They're going to be in the tournament. They got a shot to make a run. The reason why they haven't gotten as many wins as they might have in the past is because their schedule's been so difficult. They've played one of the toughest schedules in the country, and so they've piled up some losses because of that. They slipped up in a couple winnable games, but the schedule's really tough. Had a couple key injuries, so they've been okay. They've been all right. And I thought they hung with LSU for a good part of the game. They fell down into a little bit of a hole, but they responded and they cut a 12-point lead into 1 or 2 points, in the fourth quarter. So they responded. They gave LSU a good fight. I was impressed with how they look. I was impressed with their size and length. But obviously I was more impressed with LSU about how they responded and how they really sort of found different ways of scoring the ball because Tennessee did a good job of taking away their bread and butter. So I was impressed by how they fared, shooting from the outside. It's not something they do a whole lot of. It's not where they prefer to score, but it's how they won that game against Tennessee. And we can talk about Hailey Van Lith. I think it might be a natural way to bring it up. She was huge. Best game of the season for her.
You led right into my next question. Obviously, Hailey Van Lith, season high 26 points. There's been plenty of talk about her, struggling. Well, hey, what's wrong with Hailey? She's playing well, but she's not playing like a potential All-American, and certainly in a new role, in a new place, and on a new team. And I don't think that Kim Mulkey is a Taylor Swift fan. I don't think she's a Swiftie, but I'm going to guess that she would say something to the effect of, haters going to hate, so shake it off or whatever. And it seems as though Hailey's done that. But more to the point, certainly Kim Mulkey made a very precise comment about how she wasn't nearly as impressed with those 26 points as how well she handled the basketball and took care of the basketball. If you just want to sort of expound on that.
Yeah, Kim Mulkey is a big country music fan, so she's probably a fan of Taylor Swift.
Oh, well, that's true. Yeah.
If she is a Taylor Swift fan, she's probably a fan of the older stuff. Hailey. The other thing that Kim Mulkey said after the game was that Hailey has taken a lot of criticism this year, and that criticism needs to stop. That's the other thing she said. The criticism, it's come because Hailey hasn't scored at the rate that she scored last year, and throughout her career at Louisville, she scored about 20 points a game last year, and this year she's only scoring about 12 points a game. That's natural. Her efficiency has been about the same, but her shots are way down. She's taken like 6 or 7 fewer shots per game. That's because LSU is such a talented team. There's only so many shots to go around, right? And LSU really
and they're asking her to take on a different role.
Exactly.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah.
No, exactly. LSU really makes it a point to feed the post, get in the paint. And Hailey Van Lith as the point guard, it's her job to get the ball to Angel Reese and to Anissa Morrow so they can sort of attack the rim and attack the paint, inside and to get her the ball, get them the ball. So it's sort of been a difficult transition for her. She used to play that off guard role. But what happened on Sunday in Knoxville is that because Tennessee is so tall and long and physical around the rim, defensively, LSU had a tough time scoring in the paint. They had a tough time with their layups. They had a tough time getting the free throw line. Instead, they really shot more often from the outside than they usually did. Hailey Van Lith was hot. She had 4 of her 5 threes, I believe. Michaela Williams had some big buckets as well. So they really shot well from the outside, and that's really what propelled them to the win.
Do you think part of the Hailey Van Lith discourse, at least within the fandom, I don't know why I said fandom, but at least within the fans, is the fact that yes, she's taking less shots, but maybe others would have expected her efficiency to go up because she's taking less shots. Do you know what I'm trying to say? say here?
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. So her 3-point efficiency is actually up a little bit. She shot 29% from 3 last year, and now she's up to like 35%. I was just looking at the numbers a few minutes ago, actually. So she's shooting better from 3, probably because she's getting a lot more open looks, because defenses usually turn most of their attention to Angel Reese and Nisa more in the paint. But her overall field goal percentage is hovering around 40-41%. So it's been about the same. The thing that I keep saying is that LSU is at its best when she's aggressive and when she's really looking for her shot, when she's attacking the rim and taking her shots. She's so good going downhill, and so if she can get to the free throw line, if she can find some open driving lanes, then that adds a whole new element to the offense that they probably wouldn't have if she's trying to fit into an offense, when she's actually experienced enough and skilled enough to be the system herself in certain moments of the game, certain times for sure. So she's experienced. She's been through tournament runs. Louisville went to the Final Four one time. They went to the Elite Eight one time when she was there. So she knows how to play in these big games. So maybe we'll see her step up and as we get to some postseason games.
Another thing to bring up that should not be overlooked from that win, LSU on the road holds Tennessee coming out of the gate to 7 of 21 on field goal attempts in the first quarter, holds Tennessee to 31 points. I don't know what it was. I'm sorry. 31%, somewhere right around 31% for the game. That defense, was as advertised and came to play last night.
Yeah, and that's been a trend. The last 6 games, they've all LSU's held their opponents under 40% shooting in each of their last 6 games. That's Kim Mulkey's goal. She always comes in and she says we need to hold them under 39.9% shooting. That's what she always says, and they've done that in the last 6 games, 6 in a row. So I looked at the numbers over the last 6 games. So since they lost to Mississippi State, there's been 6 games since that. LSU's opponents are shooting 33.7% from the field. That's really impressive. Their opponents are scoring 63 points a game. That's really low. That's also really impressive. And LSU, on the other hand, offensively.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say. I'm sorry, Reed. I apologize. I was just going to say that's certainly down from the way they started this season. I apologize.
Yeah, exactly. And offensively, LSU is scoring about 83 points a game. So that margin of victory in the last 6 games is around 20. So there's a little bit of talk. Hailey said it after the game. Kim might have alluded to it. Is that it's all about peaking at the right time. It's all about figuring it out and getting on the same page when the games start mattering. And so when you look at the regular season, there's only 2 games left of the regular season, and then the SEC tournament hits, and then all of a sudden we'll be in March, we'll be in the tournament before we know it. But what they're really playing the best basketball of their season right now, in my opinion. They really seem to hit in their stride. Maybe after that Mississippi State loss, the time they had off, they had a couple bye weeks in there. Maybe something clicked. Maybe they figured something out and were able to finally gel and get on the same page.
Perryn,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. Perryn alluded to this earlier, but obviously they're playing much better defense than they did earlier in the season. What do you think has sort of changed defensively between the first half of the season and the last 6 games?
They in their bye weeks after the Mississippi State game, Kim Mulkey made a point to say that they practiced without the ball. They didn't have a ball. They just worked on basic alignment stuff, and they talked through schemes. They talked to what Kim Mulkey wants to do in certain situations. They talked through the system, and they just walked it through, and they just drilled it over and over and over again. And I think when they were doing that, something must have clicked. Something must have gotten on the same page, because she said she's done that before throughout her career. It's something that she's turned to when she thinks that her team needs a little more teaching and a little more learning, as opposed to more, playing and more practice time. So that might have been the right button to push at that time, because their rotations are sharper. They're contesting more shots. It seems like fewer times where they're out of position or they get beat off the dribble or something like that. So overall, they're just sharper and they're more cohesive. And I think that's something that if you ask Kim Mulkey, she'd say it only comes with time, especially when you integrate so many new pieces. into a team. It can only come with time, and so maybe we're just seeing the natural progression of that.
LSU now has moved up to LSU is at number 9 in the AP rankings. If I'm not mistaken, I had it up just now, and I'm sorry, I will look. You probably know this right off the top of your head. What is their NET right now? Reed, are they at 9?
9.
Yeah, okay. So you're looking at probably a if the season were to end today, as they often say, you're probably looking at at LSU on a 3 line. And as you say, I think we all agree that maybe they're a slip up here and there, notwithstanding, they have and they got tested as well. LSU got tested playing Auburn, playing them at home, and passed the test. But we all seem to think that LSU, issues of depth notwithstanding, that they're probably playing their best basketball right now. 2 games to go in the regular season before they head off to Greenville. They've got Georgia and Kentucky to finish up with, and then as I said, we're off to the postseason. What would you be looking for, Reed, out of these final 2 regular season games, and what does LSU need to do to keep it going, put themselves in the best possible position to get it, certainly clinch a 3 line, and maybe probably not going to happen, but maybe they could sneak up to a number 2 seed as well in the NCAA tournament.
Well, Georgia and Kentucky, they shouldn't have too many problems with either of those teams. Those teams are at the bottom of the SEC. It's the end of their season. They should win with relative ease in those games. And the first thing I would look at is the defense and the overall field goal percentage. How does Georgia shoot? How does Kentucky shoot? Can LSU finish the regular season holding their last 8 opponents under 40% shooting? I think that would be a big deal, and I think that would signal that some real growth took place. And besides that, the other thing I would look for is how comfortable, how confident does Michaela Williams looked? How comfortable and confident does she look? Because she, if you look at some of her numbers, they've sort of taken a dip once we hit February. She might have hit that freshman wall. She might have just run into some fatigue. Just the normal freshman.
Sure. This is something she hasn't gone through yet.
Yeah, the normal freshman rough patch that so many players deal with. She might have hit that. So I would look at her just to see, look how does she look on defense? Does she look fatigued? Does she look tired? How much lift is she getting on her shot? How is she using her legs? Because LSU really needs her to be sharp and effective and be making shots if they really want to make a deep tournament run. She's a huge key for that as well. So I look at her, I look at the defense, and then hopefully that hope that they stay healthy and get ready for the tournament.
We're going to finish up here in just a few minutes, but we're going to sort of address 3, I guess, mini controversies because, why wouldn't we? Of course, the clip went viral. I'm sure most people saw it. Most LSU fans saw it. Listen, there's a reason Angel Reese has the word unapologetic tattooed to her forearm. We know her to not be one to back down from a fight or back down from a dust up. Reed, obviously, she had some choice words which got picked up on social media and transcribed on social media toward the end of that game, and the post game handshake got a little feisty too. Can you just sort of walk us through what happened up there in Knoxville?
Yeah, some people did some lip reading. I think the lip readers they sort of got they can sort of decipher what she was saying. Angel's a trash talker. That's what she does. I think Kim Mulkey encourages it. I think she loves it because she was a trash talker herself when she was in college. So Angel, there was a time.
It's funny.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Reed. I was just going to say it's funny that obviously Angel and Kim in many ways are 2 very, very, very different people, but in a lot of ways they're very similar. You're talking about 2 fiery women who aren't going to take any guff.
Yeah, that's a great point. There was a time where Angel was, she was shooting free throws, and I couldn't tell who she was talking to, but she was sort of telling her "Oh, how many points you got? I got more points than you, or whatever." And then there's some chatter about NIL deals. Make sure you get your money up, something like that. It's that's what people sort of interpreted from the broadcast clips. She's becoming it's that point in the season where she's starting to come out of her shell a little bit more and sort of ruffle some feathers a little bit more. I think I picked up that she's more confident, that the team overall is more confident in themselves, and I think that they're a team based on emotion, and so when they're feeling good and when they're feeling confident in themselves, they're going to show those emotions, and I think that's what you saw in Knoxville yesterday.
And it's to be, we all know. Look, one of my favorite athletes growing up was Deion Sanders. Okay, there's nobody's going to talk more trash than Deion Sanders. But listen, we've seen, we saw last year Hailey Van Lith get into it, with some opponents, in the handshake line and everything. So if things get testy, this is not a team that's going to be prone to backing down from a challenge. We'll put it to you like that. Elsewhere, we would be remiss if we didn't mention Caitlin Clark. Listen, Caitlin Clark is appointment viewing. There's just no other way around it. Speaking of post-game handshakes, you remember at the end of the national championship game last year, Kim Mulkey made it a point to stop and tell her and look her straight in the eye and say, you can see her speaking, generational player. Caitlin finishes with a triple-double the other day. They score 101 points. Is that right?
I think
Iowa.
So.
Yeah, just anything really that you want to say about Caitlin Clark. I don't want to. And let you feel free, Reed, if you want to chime in. I think it's getting a little tired. The whole bit about, well, hey, did she break Pete's record or is it a different record? So you're talking about apples and oranges, if ever there were a case of apples and oranges and different eras and all that jazz. But this is, listen, Kim's right. She's a generational player. She's appointment viewing. We've seen. I assume you guys have seen it going to road in the Big Ten to Minnesota or Ohio State or whatever, and there's a line out the freaking door, for people waiting to get in. She sells the place out, and much the same way at the LSU ladies. LSU women have sold out pretty much every other arena they've been in. Just anything you want to say.
Yeah, Caitlin Clark, she's already going to surpass Pete Maravich this week. So Iowa has 2 games left of the regular season. She needs 51 points, I believe, to pass Pete. She'll probably do that on Sunday. And I've always tried to I've tried to be conscious of trying not to over cover that story or over talk about that story, because I think the more people,
it is something that people are talking about. I think it's it's worth noting what she's doing.
It's worth noting, absolutely, but there's a middle ground, because I think the more we talk about it, you kind of detract from both of them. You sort of take away from both of their accomplishments by comparing the two almost, and it sort of welcomes anyone who wants to come along and discredit anything that Caitlin Clark does, which I don't think anybody should do, because she is a once in a generation player. If you haven't seen her play live, I would suggest doing what you can, carving out some time to do that. Find those Iowa games this week and go turn them on. I'm just hoping that somehow LSU and Iowa meet up in the tournament again, because I've been
lucky. A few people would tune in for that.
Yeah, last year I was lucky enough to see her play in person a couple times in the Final Four,
right.
and
right.
I'd imagine she's going to be off to the WNBA soon. So I want to see her in an Iowa uniform, in person one more time, because
she is the biggest. I'm sorry, but men's or women's basketball, she is the biggest draw in college basketball this year. There's just no doubt. And to take nothing away from the LSU women themselves, but I mean, there is not that one singular men's player who's going to have everybody tuned in like a Christian Laettner or whoever. You love to hate him, or you love him to pieces. Where you have to stop everything you're doing, and it's not to take anything away from any of those fine gentlemen who are playing. Are going to be potential All-American, Zach Edey, whoever else. But yeah, no, she's appointment viewing, and she's fun to watch. The LSU women are fun to watch. So is she. That was a show they put on last April, and anywhere Caitlin goes and the Iowa women's basketball team goes, it's appointment viewing.
Yeah, it's the same thing that Pete Maravich did. She plays very similar. I obviously never saw Pete Maravich play, but she plays similarly to the way he played. From where she shoots on the floor, the deep threes, the impossible angles of passing. I think what people don't understand about Caitlin Clark is that she's such a good passer, and when you combine her passing ability, her shooting ability, and her overall gravity on the floor, somebody who has more time than me, somebody who's smarter than me, could probably figure out exactly how many of Iowa's points or how many of Iowa's shots she has either directly
she had a hand in.
That she hand in, that she either indirectly or directly accounted for, because it's ridiculous. Iowa has one of the best offenses in the country, and she is that offense. So she by herself, is good enough to produce one of the best offenses in the country. So, there's no real words to describe how good of a player she is. You just have to watch it and see for yourself. There's not really much more I can say.
We hope, obviously, that we will get to see a rematch like that. We may not. Iowa's projected as a number 2 seed right now on ESPN's bracketology. LSU projected as a number 4 seed, which incidentally they've got a. I guess I can't remember now if it was last week or the week before they had LSU in the same bracket with Baylor as a 6 seed and LSU a 3 seed. That would be appointment viewing. The current projection they have, and of course this is all, none of this is set in stone. This is all for fun. But right now, Louisville will be the number 5 seed in the same coming to Baton Rouge. And speaking of Hailey Van Lith, wouldn't that be fun to watch as well? So look, we're going to be in March. Always delivers. We're going to be in for a fun March, whether you're watching a men's tournament or the women's tournament. It's going to be quite a bit of fun. Speaking of the men, one more thing before we get out of here. I actually saw the final few minutes of Wake Forest and Duke. I happened to be watching it, but I did not see the tumult that erupted because we had another court rush, of course, and Kyle Filipowski went down for the count, took a hard fall from Duke, and that has again sparked a debate about what do you do. And I know John Shire said something to the effect of, when are we going to put an end to this? And if you guys each want to take 30 seconds on that, I understand what he's saying, and I understand that this is a real danger and all that stuff, but I'm not entirely sure what you do. To be perfectly honest, how do you deter it? So I don't know. If you two gentlemen want to chime in on that whole subject, that whole little sub layer of basketball controversy, so to speak.
Koki, you go first.
Yeah, someone smarter than me can figure out a way to delay it by 30 seconds, a minute, to get these poor visiting players off the court or off the field, then I think it's fine. But the people who are really in danger again are the visiting players who are disappointed that they lost the game, or even embarrassed that they lost the game because they lost to a team that's quote unquote not as good as them, and so their head's not going to be in a swivel when they're drunk 19 or 20-year-olds, zipping right by them, right? So, sure. Yeah, that's the central conflict of the situation. It's just that part has to be solved at some point sooner rather than later, and because this is going to keep on being an issue until that part of it is solved. And I don't know if I don't think the fines are obviously not a solution to this. Banning it all together might just it might just encourage more of that behavior moving forward. And you can't get enough security guards to stop 2,000-3,000 kids from rushing onto the court or to the field. So maybe not thousands, but you get what I'm saying here. Yep. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. You got to get those visiting players off the field, off the court as quickly as possible. That's what I think.
The fans, listen, the fans. Sure, I mean, fans are putting themselves in danger too, because there's not to say. I mean, this is going way back. Now we all remember Hillsborough. We know about Hillsborough over in England, and that was a tragedy where fans, sort of got trampled. A lot of them lost their lives. I remember being much younger. This is probably a good 25 years ago. A couple of students at the University of Wisconsin got run over. They didn't, no major injuries or whatever, but a couple of Badgers got trampled. But the question again then becomes, and I'll throw it to you, Reed. But the question then becomes well, okay, what do you do? You're right, Koki, in a sense that, are you going to put an electric fence all the way around the court? You can't. Cops on horseback. I mean, that's not going to work. Obviously, you don't have enough security and enough people to hold them back. I mean, if they want to go do it, they're going to do it. So I don't know where that leaves us, but you're right. The issue is going to keep coming up. Anything you want to add to that there, Reed?
I saw one suggestion, somebody, I guess just on Twitter or something, saying have a 10-second countdown clock, and sort of just saying give the team 10 seconds to get off the floor, and then you can release the floodgates and let everybody on. I don't know how practical that is. I don't know how you would know when a court storming is coming. Maybe you can just feel it ahead of time, and then I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but that's something. But we asked Kim Mulkey about this a month or so ago, and somebody asked her do you think we should beef up security or anything, and she was like, that wouldn't do anything. There isn't there's I don't really see the solution here other than the need for fans and students
He's freezing up, Koki.
Yeah, he's freezing up on me.
Yeah,
so.
he's freezing up. I'll tell you what, we'll have to leave it there. We will pack it up. We will leave it there. We've gone a good ways anyway. But Reed, we see you, we hear you. This is going to be an issue. Obviously, it's not going to go away anyway, so I'm sure it'll come back up. It just came back up at LSU for that matter, with Angel Reese. Saying that it was all she got knocked down herself in the men's when the men defeated Kentucky, and she rushed the floor along with them, got knocked down, and said, "Hey, it was still worth it." So. Anyway, we will wrap it up there and leave it there. Again, we appreciate you two gentlemen coming on. You know where to find all our writers' great work. That's at theadvocate.com. Please subscribe. Please subscribe to the LSU newsletter if you haven't already. Get that sent straight to your inbox. You can sign up for that at theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter. We are here every Monday and Thursday. We are live on every Monday and Thursday on all our social channels, specifically the LSU Tigers on NOLA.com YouTube channel. Please head to that YouTube channel and sign up and subscribe there. That way you'll never miss a show. You can catch us there live on that YouTube channel. If you don't catch us live, you can catch us after the fact. Also, we are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever other finer podcasts are found. And of course, we appreciate Champion Wealth Strategies being our title sponsor for this fine podcast, helping us bring this thing to you. They are there with us every Monday and Thursday as well. To learn more, go to championwealthstrategies.com and plan like a champion today. Reed, time to sign off and go ahead and catch up on some sleep. We appreciate you. Koki, safe travels over to Houston tomorrow, and we will see you guys all on the other side. And I'll be back from my undisclosed location, and we will all get together and be back here on this same YouTube channel to chop it all up. Gentlemen, we appreciate you guys having a great day.
Thank you.
All right.
For
Reed Darcey and Koki Riley, I am Perryn Keys. This has been the LSU Sports Insider.